Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I'm very excited today because I'm going to be doing my second ever episode of haunted tourism, haunted vacations, all of the spooky, creepy places I like to go, and just documenting my experiences. For 2022, I have several spooky vacations in the works. The one I just went on, one in March, one in June, hopefully one for my birthday in July, and then hopefully one for my boyfriend's birthday in September, maybe pushing it back to October to be closer to spooky season. I don't know yet, but I'm in the midst of planning a lot of super spooky, super fun vacations, and I want to just document and kind of just share them all with you here. So I'm sure you're reading this title and being like, okay, I know the Lizzie Borden House, but like Providence, Rhode Island, like that's spooky. Because that's what I thought at first. I went last year in July 2020, I believe. And when I got there, I was like, oh my God, this is the home of H.P. Lovecraft. Providence, Rhode Island is literally the birthplace of the Cthulhu mythos, the birthplace of pretty much all contemporary cosmic horror as we know it. And a lot of H.P. Lovecraft's best known works were written in Providence. So yes, when you see something like this, the Cthulhu Mythos Tales, just know that this is all from Providence, Rhode Island. H.P. Lovecraft, or Howard Phillips Lovecraft, was born in Rhode Island. He was born in 1890 and he died there in 1937. He's also buried there. And you can actually go and visit his tombstone, which I did back in July of 2020. We went to Swans Point Cemetery, which I will put a little photo of right here. It's one of the most beautiful cemeteries ever. If you've ever seen that coffee table book, 199 Cemeteries to See Before You Die, it is on there. It is absolutely stunning. It is like right on the water. Like the views are just absolutely breathtaking. And you can go and visit H.P. Lovecraft's grave, which is actually inscribed with the phrase, "I am Providence." Again, we did that last time we were there back in 2020. And it had all these cute little like alien figurines and like coins and stuff to mark his grave. Though it's very, very small. He has a very large family plot. And there was like some larger tombstones there, but his was very, very tiny and was actually not that easy to find. There's signs and stuff, but we still had to like map it on our phones. But yeah, and his gravestone says, "I am Providence," because he was born there, died there, lived there for many, many years, and he wrote such famous tales as The Call of Cthulhu, At the Mountains of Madness, The Shadow over Innsmouth, and The Shadow Out of Time. All were written in Providence. You can actually take a bunch of tours while you're there and see a lot of like Lovecraftian things. I believe you can go and see the house that he was born in. You can definitely see the house that he lived in until his death. There's a bunch of places that inspired more of his more famous tales that you can go and visit. And if you go to Brown, there's like a plaque in Brown University to H.P. Lovecraft, which is pretty cool. Now, I didn't really do any of the H.P. Lovecraft stuff when I was in Providence, primarily because I am not a huge cosmic horror fan. I am not a big H.P. Lovecraft fan. I've said this before on my channel. I don't talk about him too much because he was kind of like a raging racist at like the height of his career. Apparently he atoned for it later in life, but like he still wrote some pretty problematic things and had some very unsettling language in his thoughts on the matter, and not okay with that. So don't really want to glorify H.P. Lovecraft, but I am a huge, huge, huge fan of Cthulhu. And when you are in Providence, there are many, many Cthulhu things. There's a place there called the Arcade, which is kind of like a little mall shopping center. And inside of it is a store called the Lovecraft's Arts and Sciences. It's amazing. I have a photo of it here for you. I've been there like maybe... I've tried to go multiple times, and I've only been there when it was open once. So we spent like the first we went for 4 days back in 2020, and I think it was only open one of the days. It wasn't open any of the days that we were there this time. So I wasn't able to go in, but last time I was there, I did buy this super cute Cthulhu who has been on my bookshelf in every single one of my videos, and I absolutely adore him. and he came straight from the Lovecraft shop. Right next to the Lovecraft store is this really cool like art gallery, and I was able to take a photo while I was there this time of a baby Cthulhu, which I thought was really, really cute. Didn't really get that close to him because, again, the store was closed and I had to see him through glass, but he was very, very adorable. And you can go all over the town and kind of see these really cool Lovecraftian things. I got this really, really cute shirt at this store called Craftland, and it's got a little Cthulhu tentacle thing attacking the Providence skyline. And it says Providence weird since 1636, and I really, really love this. Cannot wait to wear it. It's very cute, it's very well made. Providence has a lot of really, really cool shops in it, especially in like the downtown district. It's also where the Lovecraft store is. And there's also this amazing bookstore there called Symposium Books. They have a huge record selection, a bunch of like really cool books. Their horror section's pretty decent for how small the actual bookstore is. It is lumped together with like sci-fi, which doesn't really bother me. But they have this gorgeous, gorgeous journal that I couldn't not buy. It's textured, so Cthulhu is kind of coming out as he's devouring the world in front of the moon. And it's got this awesome like Cthulhu octopus kind of Dagon-y, I don't even know what you would call the embellishment on the sides. And I thought it was very pretty. It's just a basic lined journal, but I couldn't not buy it because I do love Cthulhu very, very much. And I got it in Cthulhu's hometown, which is pretty, pretty cool. There's also a bunch of really cool thrift stores right in the center of Providence. If you go over to the Brown University side of the river, there is this place called Nostalgia. It is a hidden gem of Providence. It is a 3-story thrift store. And I always find just the most amazing things. But this year, I found this awesome bust of Edgar Allan Poe. They had an H.P. Lovecraft one that goes with it. They also had a J.R.R. Tolkien one, but I couldn't justify having H.P. Lovecraft on my bookshelf, and I'm a horror channel. As much as I love Tolkien, I just didn't feel the need for him. So I was able to pick up, though, this beautiful bust of Edgar Allan Poe, and I think he's going to live on the other side of my bookshelf opposite of my Cthulhu. So we'll give him his little home right there. Not really Providence related at all, but I did think that that was very, very cool. So if you follow me on Instagram at Violet Prynne, you will see some of the like behind the scenes photos that I posted and a lot of the stories from while I was on my trip in Providence. But one of the main reasons we wanted to go back to Providence this year was to do a tour of the Lizzie Borden House. Now the Lizzie Borden House isn't actually in Providence. It is actually 20 minutes away at Fall River, Massachusetts, but it was so close to Providence that when Lizzie Borden was alive, she was actually constantly going to Providence, shopping in Providence, shoplifting in Providence, and even once got arrested in Providence. So even though it's in Massachusetts, Lizzie Borden was not actually closer to Boston like I used to think she was. She was way closer to Providence. It's right there. It's right on the border. So we had to go. So the Lizzie Borden House tour, I think, was one of the coolest tours I have ever taken. I had just booked a tour for my boyfriend and I. I did do the extended tour where we got to see the basement as well. Which I think was like only like $15 extra. But when we got there, we were the only people there. So we ended up getting a full 2-hour private tour of the Lizzie Borden House. And there were no guests staying at the bed and breakfast on the day that we went as well. So we literally had the whole house to ourselves with our tour guide. We were able to see every single room, every nook and cranny. It was absolutely amazing. So if you've never seen the Lizzie Borden House, this is what it looks like. The current museum has been trying to keep it as close to what it looked like when Lizzie Borden lived there as humanly possible, both the outside and the inside. The signature green color of the Lizzie Borden house was because that is actually the color Lizzie Borden wanted to paint it, which I think is very, very interesting. So we went, we had a lovely tour guide. His name was Richard. I got to meet the museum manager, Jared, who actually, I believe, was the son of the caretakers of the Lizzie Borden house before it was turned into a museum. So he's actually grown up on the property. And our tour guide has worked for the museum for so long that he said that he actually raised his kids up and around the property. So his kids also work for the museum as well, which I thought was awesome. So anyway, they brought us in and It is so beautiful inside. The downstairs, the main floor of the Lizzie Borden house was just absolutely incredible. We first entered into the living room, or I guess the parlor, you might want to call it, which was my favorite room in the entire house. It was decorated for Christmas when we went, which was really cute. And it just like took my breath away. It was so absolutely beautiful. We then went into the dining room where you actually got to see the tables or slabs that both Andrew and Abby Borden were laid out on to be autopsied on inside of the house. We were able to go into the main living room, which is where Andrew Borden was found dead. We then traveled upstairs into the guest bedroom where Abby was found dead, then into Abby's bedroom, Emma's bedroom, Andrew and Abby's bedroom, and then upstairs through a back staircase into the attic where we got to see the maid's quarters, along with the haunted children's room, and then back down to the kitchen, which was updated to just feature all of these awesome pears. I'll get into that in a second. And then down back into the basement. I can show you here, I have some photos of the living room where they found Andrew Borden's body, this beautiful fireplace, this absolutely gorgeous like reading setup. There's no filter on these photos. That is actually how the room was lit for the tour. I loved the red ambiance. I thought it was absolutely stunning. We also got to go into the kitchen where they had this like amazing old-timey stove. As you can see, there's pears on the stove. Lizzie Borden's alibi for where she was when her father was murdered was that she was eating pears. She kind of backtracked on her alibi a few times, but pears seemed to be a consistent theme with her, and there were just pear paintings everywhere, pear sculptures. If you opened the cabinets in the kitchen, the handles were pears. It was really, really cool. And again, the house was just absolutely beautiful. So for those of you guys who do not know, Lizzie Borden was accused of murdering her father and her stepmother on August 4th, 1892. I believe she was 32 years old. She was eventually acquitted. And up until this tour, I really did believe that she absolutely committed the murders by herself, out of anger and greed. After talking to this tour guide who has spent years with this subject matter and really knows the ins and outs of this case, I'm not so sure about that anymore, which I thought was very, very interesting. While I do think that she most likely had a significant hand in these murders, I do not believe that she acted alone, and I don't necessarily believe that her motive was entirely greed. There are a lot of questions up in the air about how Abby treated Lizzie, about how her father treated Lizzie, about her relationship with her uncle and her sister, and just absolutely many, many things that I don't want to take away from the experience of going on the tour. So if you want to know the full story, I do highly, highly recommend either reading about the subject matter or taking the tour for yourself. It was far more informative than any article I've been able to dig up, any documentary I've read about Lizzie Borden. I'm very, very fascinated with true crime. I've listened to many podcasts on the subject matter. But the hands-on 2-hour tour was by far the most like in-depth experience I've had with this case. So I guess to keep in line with how I did my haunted tourism on the Stanley Hotel, if you haven't seen it, I did spend 5 days at the Stanley Hotel. You can check that out up above. Did I think this house was haunted? This house has been notorious for being haunted, obviously because 2 very gruesome murders happened there. But I will say that it wasn't until I got upstairs that I felt really, really uneasy. We were able to sit, unbeknownst to us at first, on the couch, or at least in the, it might be a replica of the couch. I would assume it's a replica because it did not have any stains on it, where we were able to sit where Andrew Borden was murdered. I happened to be in the exact seat that he was in, which was very, very disturbing, but also kind of interesting. But I didn't feel any negative energy when I was there. We got to see up close and personal the crime scene photos. We were in the autopsy dining room. And it wasn't until I got upstairs into the guest bedroom where Abby Borden was murdered that I actually felt uneasy. For those of you who know, I am a diehard believer in ghosts. I've never ever seen a ghost. I don't ever think I want to see a ghost. And I'm not necessarily looking for ghosts. But I'm convinced I grew up in a haunted house. We had a lot of weird, unexplained things happen. My sister and my mom are way more in tune to the paranormal and the supernatural than I am, and they would pick up on so many things, so much so that when we were growing up, we did have our house cleansed by a priest. But I am very aware of it, and I do like to make myself not open for a ghost to come to me, but just open-minded enough to see if there could be ghosts there. I listen to the warnings in the room, the warnings of my body. And when we got into the guest bedroom where Abby Borden was murdered, I was instantly on edge. I instantly felt like a pressure to not want to be in that room. I felt very uneasy, and it was the only room in the house that I really didn't want to stay in. It also, oddly enough, was the only room in the house that our tour guide didn't go super into long-winded detail in the house. He went through a lot of things very, very thoroughly down in the autopsy room, in the living room where the second murder happened. But upstairs in that room, it's almost like he didn't want to be in there that long either. So it was very strange, and I just felt like a very negative presence. But that was really the only thing contained in that room. I didn't really feel anything in Lizzie's room. I didn't feel anything in her parents' room or upstairs for the most part. We did get to go to the front room of the attic, which is known as the children's room. There is a story that one of Lizzie Borden's older relatives also committed a murder of her children, and that the children moved from the house that they were originally killed in to this house, and now inhabit that room. I don't know how true that is, but our tour guide did notice that you will immediately feel cold spots when you walk into that room. The temperature did drop significantly in that room, but I never felt at ease at all when I was there. The only other really noticeable ghostly moment is if you go downstairs into the basement, which really just looks like any old basement. There's like an old cistern. And if you take a photo with a flash, when it comes back, you can see a face in the wall, which I will post for you here. Let me know if you guys can see the face. And yes, I saw the face, but to me, that just kind of looked like water staining. And our tour guide was explaining how like the human mind tries to find faces and facial features in anything that seems kind of uncanny to us. So that could also explain it. But I've also read online that that's kind of near where Andrew Borden was murdered, and perhaps it is the face of something supernatural. I don't really know. But I do highly, highly, highly recommend this tour. I do think the house is absolutely stunning in this kind of old school Victorian style. Absolutely beautiful. Our tour guide was so knowledgeable. Like, Richard was absolutely incredible. He was so knowledgeable. He gave us so much insight that I've never seen in text before. One of the things that he was talking about was how he actually believes, from the forensic evidence that we have, that perhaps Andrew Borden actually died of a heart attack before he was attacked, and that would explain why there wasn't that much splatter in the walls or in any of the crime scene photos. Like, it was really, really interesting, and I just thought he was 10 out of 10 phenomenal. And as always, I did have to go to the gift shop and buy some things. The t-shirt I wanted, they didn't have in my size, but I did get this cute little chapstick because it has the Lizzie Borden House on it, and you can always use a chapstick. It's also gingerbread flavored and has an SPF of 15, which, like, that's a grade A chapstick right there. But my favorite things that I got were the hatchet earrings. And what I thought was really interesting about this is the hatchet is believed to be the weapon used in these cases, but they never found the handle of it. And a lot of the evidence that was used against Lizzie Borden that tried to convict her, even though she was acquitted, was that the handle was gone and that something had happened to the handle that probably would have condemned Lizzie if it had ever been found. So that was very interesting. So would I ever stay in the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast? Oh, for those of you who don't know, not only is the Lizzie Borden House now a museum that you can tour with a gift shop, it is also a bed and breakfast. You can stay in the Lizzie Borden House. I was not about to do that. I believe way too thoroughly in ghosts, and staying in the Stanley Hotel and having stayed in the Hawthorne Hotel in Salem, I have stayed in my fair share of haunted, spooky hotels. We opted to stay in the Hotel Providence, which is my favorite hotel in Providence. Not haunted as far as I can tell, but I could not bring myself to stay in a place where these awful crimes were committed and where there could be angry spirits. But do I think the house is haunted? I will say yes. But I think that it's more of like a lingering presence that I got, at least, than an active ghost. I just felt a lot of negative energy in the guest bedroom where they found Abby. And it wasn't super strong. Like, I never felt like I was being pushed out of that room, but it definitely felt like this kind of lingering negativity. Now, I know that people have spotted Andrew, Abby, as well as the ghostly children upstairs. Some people claim to see Lizzie there. That I don't quite believe, because she was so in love with her house at Maplecroft, and she so disliked living in the Lizzie Borden house that she grew up in, primarily because it didn't have electricity and it wasn't on the nice side of town that she wanted to live in. So I feel like a lot of the sightings of Lizzie that are at Maplecroft, I believe those a lot more than the sightings of Lizzie at the Lizzie Borden house. But people have seen Abby there quite often, and that one I feel like probably is the ghost that would be haunting that place. Can't say for sure, of course, but I did feel such a negative energy in that room that if there was any ghost there, that was the one that I felt probably is still present there. But I'm not a ghost hunter, so I don't entirely know. Anyways, that is all that I have for you guys today. Keep on the lookout for all of my upcoming haunted tourism, haunted vacations that I have coming up. I will be hopefully documenting all of them here for you guys. If you follow me on Instagram, I do post photos and videos of me in these places as I am there and the things that I am doing. I have so much fun with them. But yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. And if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.